Looks like we are live finally. Apologies for the slight error and thank you for waiting. My bad totally. I'm in a new place, new city, and somehow a new house, new settings, and somehow my belief on the technology part did not really help. For those interested, I'm in Delhi for the weekend and try to go live. So once again, apologies for those who for the delay, and very sorry for those who had to wait. So let's quickly get into the show. Today's show is quite special. First of all, those who are still waiting and have not left in a half, let me know on the chat window that you are still waiting eagerly for Udit Goenka. This is a show I've been trying to curate for some time, and Udit is a difficult man to land and very busy person for good reasons. Yeah, Milan. So of course, this is working. LinkedIn is certainly working. I can see YouTube also working. So I think all good, all good. Um, the Let's get over the delay part. You are there. Udit is there. I am there. So welcome to your show, Manage Better. This show, as you know, I try and bring together hosts or guests who are from who've done something that can inspire us, right? So we've had guests who are consultants, authors, coaches who have done quite a bit in their careers and are willing to share that story, right? So I can see, somebody has a question about LinkedIn Career Accelerator Program. This show wasn't about LinkedIn Career Accelerator Program, but we will try and cover that as well. So thank you very much for the questions right away. So I'll bring in Udit. Udit, of course, needs no introduction, but everybody does need an introduction in that sense. So Udit is a serial entrepreneur, and he will tell you the story better. But he started his entrepreneurship journey when he was in his teenage, 16, and started working on side projects, which then became big companies, and then he started companies, exited some companies, usually in the internet space. So he's an early starter in the internet space and rode the wave really well, worked out really well in terms of learning new skills, having global collaborations. And off late, his last few ventures have all been in the SaaS space, software as a service space. And that's the wave that he's currently riding beautifully. And you can, of course, find him active on LinkedIn and Twitter, very, very active. So Udit G is his Twitter, which I'll bring in some time. And of course, he is very popular on LinkedIn now, having been part of the Creator Accelerator program. So welcome, Udit.
Yeah, Anshuman, thank you so much for having me over here. It's an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And once again, apologies to everybody, including you, Udit, for the slight glitch in the
No
beginning.
worries. We are tech people. It's okay. We deal with tech issues every single day.
In a way, if these tech issues happen, jobs of a lot of people are intact because they will solve it, right? So,
No, absolutely. It creates a job opportunity.
so we are fresh out of LinkedIn Creator Accelerator program as well. And it was a pleasure, being on the program with you. So there are some questions about that, but we'll get to that a little later with it. I think it is more important to first get a tap into your entrepreneurship kind of journey, right? So I've heard this story a few times, but I'm sure there are many people who need to know this story. But we will get to that. First question up for you is more around the fact that 99% or maybe more startups really fail. They don't really work. So why should anyone even bother to get into a startup? Why? And there is, of course, there are, including me, there are a lot of people who want to start up something. But we also know the fact that 99% or much more than 99% startups fail. And you are a serial startup king, so many startups, or as you can say, and sometimes it's much more than a startup, right? So what is your take on this? Why should one even try and start up?
I think that's a very interesting question. So, Anshuman, I think it's very important to understand that what kind of risk ability you can take. But more importantly, if someone doesn't solve the problem, then we wouldn't advance in human life. So if someone wouldn't have created LinkedIn, we wouldn't be connected today. If someone wouldn't have built all these technologies, imagine doing business is still the traditional way and connecting people still the traditional way. And half of the people wouldn't even know who you are or whether you exist or not. So what I feel is that someone has to kind of like take a step ahead, take a leap, and start something. Definitely, it's not easy because you will get criticized. People will not support you. There's a lot of negative thing happens when you're trying to start this journey. But then again, as long as you believe in yourself, you have the right data. You should go ahead with entrepreneurship. It's for someone who loves taking a ride and loves the unpredictable nature and who loves the thrill, right? Because every single day for entrepreneurship is new. You don't know what's gonna come up tomorrow. You don't know what's gonna happen day after tomorrow. So that unpredictability is what excites me to be an entrepreneur.
Fantastic. I think so. See, I think Udit, you probably said it better, but I get this question a lot. I don't know why. I'm neither an entrepreneur nor have I been in any startup, but maybe because of age and gray hair, people do ask me this question that why should one? And I my answer is probably a little more naive and simple that every company, every large company today, including Microsoft and Reliance, was a startup at some point. So
Absolutely.
there is no other way. You know, every company that starts is a startup or somebody thought of it as a small idea. It was a small company, maybe 5 people, 10 people, and then it grew to huge numbers like Microsoft, or you mentioned LinkedIn, and even StreamYard or other companies that we are now today using. So, like you said, our view, of course, is that if we have a we have a solution to a problem that affects a lot of people, then it is probably our citizen duty to go ahead and solve it. So I see it that way. But yeah, you put it better because you probably have a lot of experience in this space. So I had, of course, the show format, as the regulars know, is that I have some prepared questions for you, and then we open it for the audience. So I will get into the prepared ones. This is probably the question that you get the most. You quote unquote failed in your last bigger venture. The famous story of the 200K, and I say famous because you are now quite an internet sensation with Instagram and Joe Stocks and other things. But that's the fame that comes later. So the courage that you showed in, first of all, coming out and saying that, look, I face this, but we can only move forward, right? So we want to hear this story from you, and I'll go out of the stream so that people can hear it directly from you. That so the question generally is that what happened? What happened in that 200K loss? In summary, and what can we learn from you, because you decided to talk about it, you have decided to share the journey. So what really happened, and what can we learn from that? And I will, for a moment, step out of the show so that you are full in the spotlight. Hmm?
So I think what's sort of really important is to understand that a lot of people, especially in their early 20s, they want to get into entrepreneurship. And since I've officially entered into my 30s, um, I'll talk about the failure in just a moment. But I think prior to that, it's very important to understand that the major reasons why so many companies fail is because of lack of experience, lack of distribution, lack of finance, and more importantly, lack of network. And these are things that you build in your 20s because your 20s is all about experimentation, and those experimentation should be around actually trying to get a job. If I were to go back into my 20s, I would probably like work for a bootstrap startup during my early 20s. My mid 20s would be like someone I would be working with a funded startup, and then I would be working with a corporate. Now why I'm saying this and why it's so very important to understand this is because about 10 to 12 years ago, the entrepreneurship wave sort of did not exist in India. And most of the entrepreneurs who were like born in the early sort of like 90s, and they started their career very early into entrepreneurship, and especially in the world of internet, a lot of them have really struggled because of lack of information, because of lack of opportunities, because of lack of networking, lack of technologies back in those days. And this is where, with me, that's exactly what happened. So when I made my first two companies, it was quite successful because I went to US and I built it over there. So the market over there was very, very, very developed. So it was quite easy to go out there and sell, get good people to work with. But then when I came back to India and when I built this venture, every single decision that I took, right from like hiring to like um, over hiring to like every single decision from launching my product to early launching, every decision went wrong. And that made me realize that it is so very important to actually fail in life. But now you'd probably ask me that, hey, I don't want to get into entrepreneurship to fail. But this is where you can actually learn on other people's money by joining such companies in three segment of your life in your early 20s, and using that as an opportunity to learn on other people's money, make mistake on other people's money, not your money. This is so important to do that. And I think those were like some of the critical lessons that I learned in my failure. So I lost about like $200,000. So it was about 2 years. I just kept on pouring money, and everything just kept on going wrong to a point where I almost broke down. Went into a very heavy depression. It was a very difficult phase of my life. I didn't even know if I should have ever opened up and spoke about this story. But then again, if you're not going to be vulnerable on the internet, people would not trust you. It's very important to be yourself, to be truly authentic to yourself, because trust me, there are many people on the internet that are going through similar situation like yours, and your story can possibly like inspire the people to come out and share, as that just helps overall as an individual. And that learning is something that I took when I started finding out my why. That's when I discovered Pitchground. And but then today, like, I came back again and rebuilt that failure, because the word failure sort of doesn't really exist in my dictionary. So that failure today is for sales.io. So yeah, so that has been sort of a journey, Anshuman.
No, that's fantastic. I think some of us who've been part of the LinkedIn program have heard firsthand from you, but I thought it will be useful for other aspiring entrepreneurs to hear this. And this show that for your information also, and for the people attending, stays live, stays as a recording, and I usually get a lot of hits later on because sometimes it is the weekend and people don't have time. I may have time over the weekend, but others may not have time over the weekend. So I'm sure this will be interesting for your people. And glad that you also brought out the fact that not only just generally saying that it did not work. What you also called out is that right down from marketing to people selection to team building, finance, many of these things go wrong, and it takes a little bit of time to learn. So it reminds me of something that I've spoken to several people in this space, and the common answer I get is that what you see as overnight success was 10 years in the making. So, and those 10 years may have included many such gigs. The most common example I share on this is that the Beatles, who were before your generation of this, but little before my generation as well, Beatles were considered the original overnight sensation. But what many people don't know is that for 4 or 5 years before that, they used to play in a night band in Germany unnoticed. Nobody knew. They were perfecting their art. And like you said, you were perfecting your art, which is building internet based companies and solving problems, which eventually has helped in your pitch ground and first sales.io. So, some interesting comments coming in. Let's see some of them. Vaishnavi says that I think this is in response to the early conversation we had about entrepreneurship. there are only 11 players who can play for the national team in cricket, yet millions of kids train. I guess that's the same. Yeah, very right. So everybody does aspire. You may not make the millions always, but you will do well for yourself. So yeah, so thank you, Vaishnavi. And there are some questions already coming in, and our book specialist Binati is also has a comment. So thank you, Binati, first of all, for joining and sharing your wisdom. So moving on to the next one, this might be a little easier question, Udit, for you. I want a little bit for you to talk about what does pitch ground and first sales actually do, right? Because people only see the success part; they don't see the how you landed in this space. So without making it very salesy, you don't need our money on this call. But what does it solve? What does it solve for people? Over to you.
So in a very simpler term, PitchGround is like Amazon for software. It's a SaaS marketplace where you can buy affordable softwares. And Forces.io is basically a sales engine where you can start email outreaching and start filling up your pipeline with hot prospects. So, like trying to keep the pitch short so that we can provide more value to people.
No. I expected a longer answer, but that's fine. So everybody who's listening this today, or will listen to this later on, PitchGround certainly I have used, and I find that it is amazing. How could somebody come up with that kind of idea itself is amazing, right? When you see it, you think that, oh, I could have done this, but I didn't. And Udit and his co-founder and his team, of course, has done it. So please do check out pitchground.com. If you are in the small business space and you are looking for various kinds of software, right from making short clips to recording to even now graphy, hosting your courses. So those of you who are in the let us say courseware or teaching or instructional community and would want to consider graphy as a product, all those products and services are available at huge discounts. Some of the discounts secret are more than 90% from their list sales. So this kind of thing, where will you get? So that's something that Udit and his co-founder have built, and which I thought will be useful for some of you, because this show is also about helping small business and entrepreneurs get ahead in life, right? So moving on, Udit, the so I got first intrigued about you. I'll be a little candid here. My relationship with PitchGround came later, but my intrigue, or what intrigued me, was that you bootstrapped your venture, right? For those who are new to this term, bootstrap generally means that you don't take investment, you use your own money or your own resources and invest in your own venture, which is generally used as a you can say statement of confidence that I know my product, I know my service, I can build this, uh, that kind of thing, right? So that's in general a layman's definition from somebody who's only seeing this from a distance. But let's hear from Udit as to why why did you choose to bootstrap this when this kind of an idea could have fetched you a lot of investors, I'm sure. But why bootstrap, and why your fascination with bootstrapping?
So couple of things. First, like I'm a Marwadi, right? I understand the value of equity. So that for me is so important. Second, I chose entrepreneurship for freedom. I did not choose entrepreneurship to make millions because I know eventually I'll reach there. But that's not something that keeps me going. What keeps me going is just solving people's problem, and then someone like you coming and saying that, hey, thank you so much for bringing product like Graphy for an example on PitchGround, because I can save 10 times, 20 times more earlier, where I was just hesitant to set something up and use the software because it was so expensive. I can now actually use it. It's very affordable for me. So that for me is key, because if your customers are not happy, it's so very difficult. So it's not that I did not try to raise. So just prior to COVID, I actually tried to raise capital. I reached out to almost about 31 VCs, and all of them said no. They just said like SaaS is not going to work, marketplace is not going to work. It's just not going to work. And we actually went with $1 million traction with them. It wasn't like we went with a pre-seed idea or a pre-revenue idea, or we just had a little bit of traction. We had over $1 million in traction, and even then, like we got rejected by every single VC. I ended up wasting 6 months of my life, trying to like just get things going and stuff. And then I spoke to my co-founders, and I was like, "Why are we wasting this time? I could have spent this 6 months actually speaking to our customers and close them." And that's when we decided that we're just going to continue our journey bootstrapping, because again, this gives us the freedom to do the things we want. And more importantly, the whole SaaS industry, you need to move at an extremely rapid pace, because when it comes to technology, if you don't move fast with technology, you might just get outdated in a years of time, or you might just get outdated in 6 months of time. And when you start onboarding a lot of VCs investors, the problem is you have to start taking decisions based on what they are saying all the time. There has to be board meetings, there has to be a, so it creates a lot of friction over a period of time, and that is a huge challenge. And that's the reason why we decided that, hey, let's just continue bootstrapping. We're profitable, we cash flow positive. Let's just keep on doing that. Why do we want to share a piece of pie with someone when we can actually share more revenue with our team instead? And that's what we started doing. So that's why we chose entrepreneurship, because today, let's say we have an amazing month and we decide to share some bit of the revenue to with our team members. We don't have to go and ask and take an approval from a bunch of investors. And if some investors are not available, then it might just delay the whole process. We are in control. We take every single of those decisions. We move fast, and that's the major reason why, like, I want to continue bootstrapping. And more importantly, on the marketing end today, it also helps you to build a story. So that story also helps you to sell better. So if you look at companies like Zerodha, Zoho, we talk so much about these companies today. One of the major reasons is that those companies are bootstrapped. Another major thing is when you're bootstrapping, you understand what is margin, and you keep on optimizing your businesses at every single level. So my dad runs his factory, and one of the things that sort of like I've learned from him is that if any sort of part in your factory is broken, your entire process is broken, right? Your
Mm.
margins are going to shrink, everything is going to get screwed up. So when you build a bootstrap company, you are careful about every little activity, every little thing that will drive you revenue, that will improve your margins. And that's how every single big profitable companies were built, on those exact same principles. Versus if we were just being asked to raise, we might have been just told spend like 10x more, forget about your cost of acquisition of a customer. What we just care about is you being out there and acquiring customers. That's where the problem comes in, and that's something that we decided that we're not going to do. That we don't want to get into that burn situation where tomorrow we have to just keep on raising capital after capital after capital, because the moment you invest in the moment like you end up getting an initial bunch of investors, the problem is the circle never stops.
Mm. Mm.
And
Mm.
a CEO ends up becoming a full-time fundraiser rather than actually focusing on his company, because he has to keep pleasing the next round of investors so that the first round of investors can exit. Then they have to keep on again sort of please the next round of investors so that the previous round of investors. So you get into that loop of cycle where you have to get them an exit in 2 years of time or 3 years of time, and you just dilute yourself from your core mission and vision. Because founders today, many of the so-called unicorn founders, I'm not going to name anyone, they have less than 3 or 4% equity in their own company. Their ESOP pool is bigger than the equity that they hold in their company. So that's not why I chose entrepreneurship for. I would rather give it away to my team. I would rather help them, because my team is who is helping me build this entire company, not investors. And my customers are the one funding the company. So I would rather take all my time and cater them and serve them and give them the best service possible, give them the best product possible, rather than pleasing investors. And that was the major reason why I chose to go bootstrap. And that's why I keep telling companies try to bootstrap as long as possible, because you will understand how to run a business. It will take time, but then again, building a startup is a marathon, it's not a sprint.
Thanks, Udit. I think the core message, of course, for everybody listening is that, and Udit is, of course, keeping it to himself, but he's probably speaking for many people are in this similar space, that you choose this kind of a journey, you choose in entrepreneurship to stay free, to solve a problem, to make it, reach out to more people. And the moment you get into this, investor business and seeking money and probably using it also. And there are many stories today of burn rate, companies having losses more than their total base revenue base itself. Those kind of things. So once you get there, there is no way out really. So it becomes a financial exercise and not so much a problem solving exercise. And of course, some people will get out of it and some will make money, but the odds keep getting lower and lower and lower, because eventually the investor will want an exit. And when the investor wants an exit, you are then a puppet in that space, because then you don't really. There are many recent examples of IPOs also, which were which were totally driven by investor exit mania. And many retail, I would say, investors lost their money. And you and I and many people in this call might have also been in the same space. um, so there are quite a few questions. When cash is low, that is when the ideas to be successful. Yeah, fantastic, Alek. Quite a few questions coming in. So we, for a moment, lost Udit in this show, but he's back. So I'm just trying to find a question that I had identified. Yes, from Aniket. Aniket wants, and this is more than half an hour into the show. So we will now take a lot more questions from the audience. Uh, he, of course, loved the Beatles example. Thanks, Aniket. I'll tell you more about that example later. But today, Udit is the star of the show. So the question for you, Udit, is that we are beginning to see rise of one-person companies by creators and influence. What next steps would you recommend them to take so that they can scale up? Yeah, fantastic. I think many people in the creator program also have aspirations of turning into a business, right? So whatever is their hobby or passion or the vocation, they want to turn it into a business. So what will you say to them? Yeah. Over to you.
I think that's a brilliant question. So, Aniket, I think the first thing that you have to really ask yourself is what is the end goal, right? Where do you want to see yourself? Because entrepreneurship starts when you know your destination, and then you're taking up the journey. So that's one thing that's extremely important. So I know there are solo founders in SaaS industry that are making like $2 million, $3 million annually, and they're all alone. They're marketing themselves, they're selling themselves, they're building the product themselves, they're doing everything themselves because they just found the right problem to be solved. And they don't want to build like a unicorn. They're happy making $3 million hardcore cash, which everyone would do, you know. So it's very important to understand what is that end goal. Now, if you still feel that, okay, now I know my end goal, I know that here is my destination and I want to get started with it, that's when you start taking a first step of actually finding co founders. Because having a very diversified skill set in your co founders is going to help you have a long term commitment. Because today, entrepreneurship is mostly about being able to build the right team, and building a right team is a huge challenge as of 2022. So anyone who is an influencer, who is a creator and want to take that path, I would say like find out a problem statement and ensure that the problem statement is large enough. Because if you're going to get into entrepreneurship and if you have very small goals and dreams, the chances are that you might not be able to find and attract the best of the best talents, and you might not be able to attract the good co-founders as well. And without them, you just cannot build a company, because if you do not have the right team, you will just not succeed. It's as simple as that. And I'm saying this because in my previous failure, that's one of the biggest mistake I made, was a bunch of wrong hiring. And those bunch of wrong hiring led me to just bleed a lot of cash capital, and that led to so many challenges. And this is why this time I chose to build a very lean team. I rely a lot more on automation, and then I mix it up with the right team members. And if someone is not performing, we let them go at the same time very, very, very quickly. So I'm a firm believer of like hire fast, fire fast sort of philosophy that Gary Vee always says. Because when you're hiring, it's still guessing, but when you're firing, it's not guessing. You exactly know. And if someone is not delivering in your months of time today, they are likely not going to deliver you in the second or third or the fourth month. Because people who are extremely good and doers, they can start producing results from day one. They don't need to wait for the end of the month to start producing results, because they exactly know what to do, and they are consistent and they keep producing results consistently. So if you want to get into the entrepreneurship from being a creator or an influencer into entrepreneurship, the first thing you have to ensure is, again, make sure that you know the problem statement. You have a bit of cash capital. Don't try to go out there and raise capital right away. And third is build a team. And when you're building a team, always build a team from the top and not from the bottom. Now, what do I mean by that? This is another common mistake people make, is whoever is starting out, they'll start hiring interns. They would sit down, train those interns for 3 months, only to realize that after 3 months they're gone. And all your time is gone. So you've actually not saved money, but you've lost a lot of time. And time is much more valuable because you're not getting that back. So start hiring from top. If you're low on cash, and if you're a good seller, if you're a good closure, give out a bit more equity to your co-founders, because you need long-term people to be out there and walk through that difficult path and journey with you.
In a way, Udit, this is a question I had also wanted to ask, but in slightly different words. So I will, we'll skip the question. But what I was trying to ask, which you all probably already answered, is that apart from having a good idea, which is a problem to solve, and maybe you already have some kind of solution, what are the things one should keep in mind? So you while answering Aniket's wonderful question, you've already shared the response. Chitra has asked a wonderful question, though she's asking about three things, but this is slightly different. Um, so, question to you is that when an entrepreneur goes through the most toughest time of the business, and which you have gone through, and for an entrepreneur, actually every day is tough, because you are taking decisions. There nothing comes easy. You are lonely and probably depressed, and you've opened up to this word, Udit. So I know this is not a strange word for you. And what would be top three? And she's mentioned that she meant not practice but practical. So what are the top three practical things he or she should do? So any input on this? From a practical point of view, what could you do on a regular basis to avoid getting into a deep hole like you were?
I think that's a very interesting question. So I think, Chitra, the first thing that you need to realize and accept for the fact that entrepreneurship is lonely, right? You have to secondly ensure that you are passionate about solving that problem. Because if you're not gonna, if you wake up and say, "Shit, I have to go back and do that work again," then you're really not passionate about solving that problem, right? So for me, I wake up and I love building and selling softwares. And know for the fact that this is the only thing that I enjoy the most in my entire life. And this is something that I'm going to continue to do. And even after 10 years, I'm going to continue to do. But at the same time, I have not closed my doors and mindset, because tomorrow I could get curious about something else. So I'm a firm believer that you need to like also chase your curiosity first and then develop your passion, and not your passion first. Because if you're not curious about something, you're not going to develop that. So first thing again, entrepreneurship is lonely. You need to accept that. Second, be passionate about what you are doing. And third, and most importantly, today is start building an audience before building a company or a product. and focus more on your idea stage. So there was this is also a bit of related to sort of like Aniket's question. So I'm just going to answer that very quickly. So I have a thesis on $100 concept, which is really sort of like getting popular. So this $100 concept basically says that um, you go out there in your idea stage and reach out to 100 people, and 100 people only in your ICP, which stands for Ideal Customer Profiling. Pitch them your idea and tell them, look, you pay me $1 and I'm going to deliver you the product after 4 or 5 or 6 months. Now, $1 is not a lot, but when you go out and make someone spend a credit card, right, that $1 is a lot. They're not going to give you that $1, right? No matter what. And again, this doesn't include friends and family, right? They're complete random strangers on the internet running a company. So you reach out there and go and tell them and pitch them. Now, let's say that you pitched to 20 people and they converted out of those 100 people. Now you have made $20. The chances of the success of your startup is 20%. Now go out there and reiterate your pitch over and over and over again and understand why those 80 people said no to you. Repitch them again, right? They have said no, but always remember when it comes to sales, no always means no for then and not for the future. Always remember that. So you reiterate your pitch, go back and pitch again. Now, the first conversation is something that you have to record and write down notes on, because every single person who has a problem will pour the heart out and tell you that, hey, this is my problem. Understand that, reiterate the pitch. Now, if you reach to 50 people who have now given you $1, chances of your success of your startup is 50%. Now you have to make sure that you convince at least 80 people. Again, you cannot add more people. You have to convince those 100 people only. Now, the moment you are able to convince those 80 people, there you go. The chances of your success now is 80%. Now, that's the risk that you can take. Now, this entire journey will probably take you 3 months. And this is such an important exercise that no one really does that. And only recently, when I started speaking out about this thesis, people have started adopting and started using it and started seeing crazy results. Because when you speak with these people, you understand what to pitch, why to pitch, and whom to pitch. And this is so important for you to understand, because your customers will tell you more about your business than you know about your own business and your own idea. And this is when you have such a high level of clarity, then you build a product or a service, and then you start selling. And when you do this, right, it's gonna tie up to you're gonna not feel lonely, because you're gonna be excited about solving the problem. It solves the problem of your passion, because you have now generated curiosity. You know that someone is out there willing to pay you for that problem. And then third is that idea stage that comes in. So when you combine all of these things, you start creating magic. And again, the chance of you being successful is a little higher at that stage.
So I think really well said. So this is, for everybody, this is like a bonus freebie. This comes in. If Udit had a course on Graphy, he would probably be running, maybe a masterclass on marketing or how to pitch. And this comes from a successful person in this space. So this was an unplanned question, totally unplanned answer. So thank you, Udit, for the bonus for our audience. And I'm just scanning for some questions are of course similar. So guys, what I will suggest, of course, is that do check out Udit on social media, including LinkedIn, of course, and other social media platforms. Very active on Twitter. Many of these concepts he's sharing in a condensed form today are already. He's very generous with his time and knowledge, so he does share. And one of the reasons why I wanted him on this show is also because people who are generous with what they already know, we want to learn and we should learn from them, right? So there are not many people who want to share like Udit does. So there was one question. I'm searching for it now, Udit, but I think it was mostly around layoffs in the startup space. So I know it's a very contextual question because you may or may not be facing that. But is there any advice you can give to people in that space?
So are you talking about on the question is on the more of the company end, like what can you do, or is it more about on the
from
end
the
user
company
who's working?
from the
So
company point of view?
so from the company point of view, it's actually quite a funny thing. What happens is that I spoke about the investment sort of thing, right, a while back. So again, I'm going to drop some more truth bombs. So what happens in the industry is when you're looking to raise more capital, the next round of investors are not being pitched for the revenue growth. They are being pitched for the company growth. So what they show is the number of employees being added. People don't realize that normal people like you and me, we often get baited by these companies because they are just looking to raise a next round with like 4x, 10x more valuation. So what happens is the fact that if a company has got like 500 employees and they end up hiring 1,500 more people and they reach like 2,000 people, now the next round of investors are being pitched that, hey, look, we have grown like 4x in like last 6 months. Trust me, most of the people are just sitting on the bench doing nothing, right? Only to realize that when the recession kicks in, those are the first people to get kicked out because they were just being hired so that more capital can be raised. And the kind of salary that is being paid is maybe less than 2% of what they raised in that round. So for them, that money stays in the bank, and this is what really happens. And this is a cycle that happens every single time when recession comes in. When the bull run comes in, so every time a major incident happens, a major occurrence happens, you look at across like the last 100 years as well. That's what the data says that the bull run comes in right after that. A huge amount of money is pumped in because it's being printed, and that money then creates inflation. And that inflation, what happens during that money being pumped in is because then these banks usually give out the money to all of these VCs and all of these companies for pretty much either for free or for like 0.1% interest rate a year or 0.2% in US. And because of this, a huge amount of money gets pumped in, and that's when the round raising happens. So on the end on the company's end, I would say that you just need to be careful how you're hiring, why you're hiring. But again, this is something that cannot be stopped. Basically, this is a cycle, and this cycle will keep on rotating. And on the end user's end, today, focus on your skill, focus on your personal branding. Because if you're not going to do that, chances of you surviving in the industry is very hard because talent are being really appreciated. And if you want to make like sort of more money, you have to start focusing on really being a doer.
Well said. There are a couple of questions on the same lines, like what I think Chitra had asked earlier. So while I'll flash the question, I'll skip it a little bit, or maybe if you want to quickly answer this, Udit, these are around what are the top three or five, or basically any number one should consider to be an entrepreneur. You did mention team, you did mention problem solving. Any summarized answer for Samir so that I think we can wrap up this question?
I think again the first thing for me that you have to do is ensure that you're passionate about what you're solving, have the right team in place, spend more time on the ideology stage. Do not just jump in, build something, and more importantly, make sure that you have enough corporate experience today, because people don't realize that the real dhanda is made when you start closing big businesses on this enterprises. So I have a quote that I often say that on this enterprises they drive your revenue, while small businesses drive your brand. So you have to understand this and ensure that you have enough experience, and then you're getting into entrepreneurship because the average age of a successful entrepreneur right now is 45. So if you're not 45, you have a lot of time in the world. So don't worry, don't rush into things, just take time and be mentally prepared that it's going to be quite a ride. And the first 5 years of you building your entrepreneurship career is going to be the build phase. Do not expect to build a unicorn and just throw in valuation. Just focus on making sure you keep on optimizing your margins. You look at any big company today, we talk about like Infosys, L&T, Reliance, Asian Paints. One of my favorite brands is Asian Paints, right? Started back in 1942. Why the reason why they generate so much free cash? Again, ITC, another big example. They make so much money that they don't even know what to do with that money, right? So they throw away like 6-7% as a dividend to their
Mhm.
investors. Why are they able to do that? Because they focus on margin, right? They focus on optimizing every part of their businesses, and good businesses takes time. So there's a saying in Japan, short term planning for them means 20 years. In India and in US, short term planning means like 6 months or 1 year, right? So this is why you see so many Japanese companies are so successful today, right? Investors are so successful. That is because their goal is, their short term thinking is, we're going to plan for the next 20 years. So make sure you're getting into entrepreneurship with all of those things in mind, being prepared, and then you get into entrepreneurship, or else it's going to be very difficult.
No, thanks, Udit. Vinity is already using your tips to start thinking of digital project. So very soon you might have something on Pitchground from Vinity. So watch out for that. But we are coming to an end of this to the show. Even though we started a little late, but I did take time from Udit for till noon, so I'll respect that. And I think a lot of value has already come in. Vinod is talking about experimenting and validating. Yes, Vinod, thank you very much for your comment. Quite a few other comments. There is one from which I want to highlight. It's an interesting one. Karthik. Um, I don't know what is your take on this, Udit, but Karthik wants to know what's your take on managing health of both entrepreneurs and employees. Of course, he's probably hinting at burnout and significant health issues because of the sheer hard work, right? So I have a small take on this, but let's hear from you.
So, Karthik, to be very honest with you, there is nothing known as a work-life balance for an entrepreneur, for a founder, right? We can write all the tweets, we can give all the gyan, we can write like long essays on LinkedIn as well. But honestly, if someone wants to get into entrepreneurship, they cannot have a work-life balance, right? Till the time you actually complete your build phase, because if you're not ready to put in 16 to 20 hours for the first 5 years of your business, it's going to be very difficult to make it, because you need to make sure that the 10 year of your journey is cut short to 5 years. And for that to happen, you need to put 16 to 18 hours. There have been times in my life, even today, where I don't sleep for like a couple of days, 3 days, right? So when I was traveling to Bangalore just 2 days ago for the event, I did not sleep, right? I was just working because I knew that the whole day of mine is going to go at the events, meeting people, catching up with people at the LICAP event. So I did not sleep, and I wrapped up the entire work. And then right from the airport, I came to the event. Then I met people. I came back to the hotel, checked in, and then I went back again, networking and met people, right? Got back at the hotel again at 11, and then again I was wrapping up some more pending work that got in. So this is what you have to do. So there is nothing known as work life balance, right? No matter how much gyan I would give, it just doesn't exist. It's going to start getting better after 5 years. So you have to make sure that those 5 years, you're not distracted, you're fully focused, and your first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, and so on, all the priority is your business, because that business is going to be your baby. And if you're not going to nurture it well, you're going to start having challenges. You're going to start having cracks down the road. So just do that. But again, other than that, like, just take some time out if you want, right? And you can go to gym, you can go for a walk. So when I spoke to my doctor, he said, like, forget gyms and everything, just go for a walk. That's it. Like, just go for a 30 minutes walk, and that's all you have to do every day. Continue doing whatever you're doing. Try to get some good sleep. But then again, during your initial stages, trust me, there'll be like times where you won't get sleep, because sleep is such a luxury for entrepreneurs, that you start respecting sleep more and more as you start getting into your like 30s. But then again, you will have that sort of an energy until you're like 35. After 35, you will stop dropping that energy. So use age as your factor. This is why I told you, in your 20s, use other people's money to build your network, grow, make mistakes, so that in your 30s, your 30 to 35 is the perfect age, because you will know exactly what to do, and you would be able to cross that entire your 30 should be building something. You will be able to build that by 35. So from 35, 36 itself, you'll be able to start enjoying your life even more, because the business would start it would start running a bit on like autopilot. So now I'm not much more involved in like pitch round stuff, because the team is sort of handling it. Now first is for me is my new baby, right? It's my second baby at the moment. So now I'm spending a lot of time on nurturing this baby, where I'm going out there doing events, talking to people, pitching, cold emailing, and getting on a call with people, because right now the business requires my time. In next 2 3 years, my involvement would go less, and I would take more of that managerial role as a CEO. Well, and I love being active as a CEO, right? I just cannot sit down and sort of like just monitor things. I just love, I call myself as a growth hacker, right? So I handle the entire marketing. So I think that's what you have to do and understand, and just be prepared for the shitstorm that's going to come in into entrepreneurship. And if you're not prepared for it mentally, trust me, it's going to be a challenge. Again, I don't want to sugarcoat and give like that gyan that, oh, it's going to be awesome and things like those. I just want to be brutally honest, because I just want to share my experience.
Thanks, Udit. I expected nothing less from you, and that's one reason why you are here. That there is a lot of sugarcoating going on around that work-life balance, and prioritize health. Everybody says that. I'm yet to meet a successful entrepreneur who has 6 7 hours of work day and has a pretty relaxed life. Doesn't happen. Everybody that you see who's successful today, once you're successful at 5 years 10 years of your company, and you are very popular on Twitter like Udit is, and on LinkedIn as well, then you can write those posts which people will like, right? But that, I can tell you, comes after. uh, People like Jack Dorsey and all, who are one of the poster boys of this kind of world. Um, for both health reasons and time reasons, Jack Dorsey is a proponent of OMAD. OMAD is one meal a day, so he has time only for one meal a day, and he's at his peak. He was running both the companies, Square and Twitter. So I'm not saying that you should go the OMAD way. All I'm saying is an example that even the highly successful people that we know, there is nothing called work-life balance. Health does take a toll. You have to manage it. You have to somehow manage it. Like Udit says that he found a way. I'm sure everybody else is trying to way. Of course, nobody is professing that you be negligent of your health or of your employees' health or other things, but find a way, right? And the way is not as simple as just saying that find a work-life balance. It is more complex than that. Udit,
So
I
I
know
would
we
like to
will.
add.
Sure,
I would
sure.
like to add one simple like live growth hack that has really helped me is try to take a 30-minute power nap in the afternoon. It it really helps. It really helps. It's a very simple life hack. Just after you have had your lunch or something, right? Wait for an hour. I don't sleep right away, or else you're gonna start gaining weight. But just wait for like an hour or so, and just take a 30-minute power nap. Trust me, it will keep you going throughout night when you're working.
Thank you, Udit. My time is 22 to 25 minutes. I somehow have a body clock alarm that if I take an afternoon nap, which I usually do, and I'm up before the next call. So my calls are usually half an hour slots, 25-minute slots. So I'm usually up before that. But yeah, what we will do is that there are a lot of comments and questions as well. So guys, what we'll do is that Udit is of course quite regular on, or quite active on LinkedIn and Twitter. He will try and take the questions during the day and in the coming days. I will also try and answer wherever I can, but we'll have to let him go. And I usually end the show with, of course, thanking the guest, in this case Udit, and lovely audience that I have. Once again, apologies for the initial glitch. This is in 35 shows. This is the second show that has had a slight glitch. So not too bad, not too bad. But the other announcement I usually do is that what is the next show? So the next show is next Saturday, 11 a.m., which is 20th of August, 11 a.m., which will be a quality-oriented show. So those of you who know me, I do both kind of shows. So one is of course around manage better kind of theme, and one is around quality. So that will be with the chief quality officer, or head of quality for the Vellore Medical College, which is one of India's and Asia's leading medical colleges. So we will see how quality is deployed and implemented in a large, popular, successful medical institute. Right? So Dr. Lalu Joseph, he will be my guest on behalf of Kimco Foundation next Saturday. So see you there, those who are interested. And I'll of course post for that. So with that, this is a wrap. Thank you very much, Udit, for your as usual candid approach to answering all the questions. And like
Thank
I
you so
said,
much, Anshuman. Pleasure's all mine. Thank you so much.
always a pleasure. And that one question around LinkedIn Career Accelerator program got unanswered. So my apologies to the two people who would ask that question. We will cover it separately. Don't worry. We will do a show. And if Udit is able to join, fantastic. But we will certainly bring other LinkedIn creators to answer that part. Thank you once again. See you. Bye bye.
Bye, everyone.